Okay, oops, maybe I should turn on some screens. Interesting.
I remember the ways.
You got it.
I got it. I remember the way of the tube.
Okay, good. Okay. So welcome to software design. We got a pretty full class here in person. We have some online students also. So this is a flex class. So I will be zooming this class. That's not for you in class people. You are going to come to class every day and not just jump on Zoom, right? You're going to nod and smile at me and say, yes, Tom, I will come to class every day and not just watch the Zoom recording. That's not Michael, who can't be here on Thursdays. Stuff like that. There's a couple other students who have conflicts, and we have online students. But again, it's flex. Decide what's your best way to succeed in this class. Here. So I will tend to be recording classes, and I'll try to remember then to post those classes to the class, to Brightspace there. Though quite frequently I find it useful just to record the classes and then forget about them and never post them to class. So online people, when you don't see a class, just send me a quick text or an email and remind me to post that there for that. Okay. So we're going to get started today. Let's just do some of the beginning class sort of stuff here. While we go, I think nearly all of you in a class, but let's go through. Some of you may not be that familiar with each other here. So let's just go through and do, how about just a name, and then if you did a computer related internship or job this summer, where it was at there. If you want to share something else, that's fine. But why don't we just start that?
Hey guys, my name is Johnny. I did an internship this summer at a company that does like wireless home security systems. And I was working on like the dealer portal where dealers interact with that. So more front end stuff.
Hi, my name is Sumner. I did an internship with the National Solar Observatory, and it was mainly just a lot of coding for physics research.
And where was that at?
It was in Boulder, Colorado.
Yeah, I love Boulder.
Yeah, it's a pretty place.
Yeah. So, okay. Grace?
I did an internship at Minnesota Power.
All right.
I'm Alec. I did an internship in Southern.
Okay.
In Brixton, and I did an internship with a professor at the university.
Okay.
I'm Rylan. I did an internship for a company called Census down in Brainerd, Minnesota. I'm Hunter. I worked as data entry kind of specialist for first one and methods. I'm Banda. I worked as a developer for JD.
Okay.
My name is Mick. You're doing internship.
Miles? Where were you physically based? Did you get this? What? Oh, you could spend the whole summer up in Thief River Falls and you were remote? Oh, that's sad. Okay.
My name is Max. I did it. My name is Vincent. I did an internship.
My name is Eva. My name is Abby, and I did a live.
I did an internship with Union Dangle Switzerland. So last year I did internship with Switzerland.
Okay. David, are you over there?
I am David. I did an internship with Carnegie University.
Jeffrey, I did an internship with US Steel.
Michael?
And Michael, I did an internship at
United Health Group.
Okay, so next, what we're gonna have you do is, while I'm blabbering on about how this course runs, and you probably had a course from me, so you know how my courses runs, but we'll go through it anyway, because some of you may not have had a course from me. Ooh, and you think, boy, I'm gonna learn a lot from Tom. Thanks, Michael, very useful. So you're gonna go to discussions. And you're going to introduce yourself to the online students or read some of the online students already, Bethany's already posted here. So you want to see and hear Bethany. And you want to see my summer highlights here. So I'll do my quick introduction here. So my kids are grown. So my wife and I had a relaxing summer here. We got to see both of our kids and go on some travel. I also like woodworking and biking, so we did a fair amount of that sort of stuff. So there's a picture of my daughter and I up in the Boundary Waters with some friends of hers. We spent a couple days up there. My wife and I were in Ireland for 10 days in June. And you go, oh, I'd like to go to Ireland with Tom. You're thinking that would be lots of fun. Why didn't he invite me? Well, I'm going to invite you because not this spring, but spring 2026, I'll be co-leading the Ireland Study Abroad program there. So talk to me if you want to, spend a semester in Ireland. It's a fun program. I've led a number of students. I've done that semester a number of times. It's a great program, great way to see Ireland and Europe while you're there. So our son's out in Washington State, out Bellingham, so we flew out to Seattle and we went whale watching with him. I went fox hunting in Montana with some friends. I do a fair amount of woodworking. So man, this is just such blazing fast internet here. Isn't it just amazing fast how fast these are loading up here?
Having 20+ people in the room.
Right, yeah. So with this. So I've been doing woodworking and making bowls and that sort of stuff over the summer too. So that's my quick highlight. Okay, so again, you can post something to introduce yourself to the online students or read about that or just interact there. So let's talk about this class a little bit. Here's our mandatory syllabus viewing. So this is, an advanced software development class. We'll be doing a lot of programming in the course, particularly looking at larger, more complex projects. So it'll be really rare for you to start and create a whole program by yourself for this class. And again, usually in the workplace, you rarely do that anyway. So it'll be much more of the case where I will give you a project and have you learn about that project and then modify or do something within some bigger project or context from some places. Sometimes what we'll do is we'll take a project and we'll tweak it. We'll start with a very simple project and then we'll modify it in different ways. So there are some projects that we'll spend for a whole month on and modifying them in different ways, and you'll be very tired of those projects when you get done with them. But that's the way it goes. In order for us to kind of see bigger projects and get to know bigger projects, we have to spend some time on them. So we'll be looking at larger projects and stuff. We'll be coding in C# here. So you're thinking, I don't know C#. I said, that's fine, because we're going to spend a whole week learning C# next week. And that's all you really need to know there. So some of you have had some C# in game design, so you'll be somewhat familiar with that. It is really just Java with a slight tweaks to it. So that's why I'm not too worried about it. You've all had some Java, and so it's based, all we'll look at is the differences between C# and Java. So it's very similar to Java for a lot of things here. So we'll be using C# and doing our programming on there. The text, I'm going to wait on the textbook until just a little bit, and we'll talk more about the textbooks here. Why is that going to the wrong syllabus, I ask you? Am I in the wrong version of this class? For some reason, the syllabus page didn't seem to get updated. Let me just correct that. Not sure why this didn't get saved. I've done this all before, and for some reason it didn't get updated. If there's another, okay, let's see. Okay, so let's see. You should be able to see the right syllabus now if you reload the page. Yeah, that looks good. Okay. So textbooks, there we'll be using two. One is we've been using this kind of the format of this code, this adaptive code textbook, and talks about what are called the solid design principles that we'll work on. And that's an actual book. You can get it either electronic or paper format out there. And now a number of stuff, it's around $40. They're used, you can get it much cheaper. It's an old textbook, it's 2017, so it's out of, I don't know if it's out of, it's just these topics are still taught and used a lot, but it doesn't have some of the newer stuff. So we're also adding a free Microsoft microarchitecture textbook to this stuff. So we'll be using that book also in this class. So we're using these two textbooks here. We've been using the adaptive code one for I think 6 years now in this course. And so that's kind of sets the framework of the course. This last time I taught this course, I really started introducing some of this microarchitecture, microservice architecture stuff into this course and working more with that. And I'm even moving more towards that in this semester. So last year we didn't use the book, we just used some of the examples of the book. This year we're going to use more of this book here. It does give us more. We're going to have to then kind of decide what to use because you know, the adaptive code is basically a full textbook, and the microservices textbook is also another 350-page textbook. So that's more than we can really cover this class. So I will be a little selective as we go through it on what we'll be using here. We'll use Visual Studio 2022, and we'll talk about that when we jump into the Unit 0 part of this class. here. Again, this is my phone number, so feel free to text or call me. You can text or call me at any time. My phone goes silent when I go to, after like 10 o'clock. So, and so you don't have to worry about waking Tom up or anything like that. You're not. So you can text me, call me anytime. My phone will ignore you when I'm not available. So, you can also email me. Email works. It's just a little slower. So if you want to reply within a week, email is really good option. If you want, like if you're stuck on some coding thing, something like that, text works a lot faster.
Oh, I think I emailed you at like 10 or 1 o'clock one night about coding, expecting a response the next day, and I got another one at like, or a response at like 2 a.m.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I feel like that varies.
It does vary. I mean, it does depend on where and what, where I am and what I'm doing and that sort of stuff. So there are times where I'm up at night. So, okay. Also, especially for online students, but also norms, there are calendar slots. Google has updated their calendar slot stuff. So I think you can go here and you can see when you can sign up for times. Right now, I'm just doing Thursday nights and Sunday nights for time slots. So you can do that. I know, again, some people like to have that, particularly, again, everything is due on Sunday nights. All assignments are due Sunday nights. So that's why I have a lot of that. So if you are working on it, especially online students who are working over the weekend and you get stuck, you can sign up for a time on Sunday nights and get some help. I also have some students who just like to interact and have a scheduled weekly time slot with me, particularly online students or something like that, if it works. So if you want, I mean, I have students who just do a reoccurring, every Thursday at 7 o'clock, I'll meet with Tom, and that just forces them to do the assignment for that. And then sometimes, half the time I cancel that ahead of time, but it'll do that, especially like I say, for online students who don't have the regular class, and in-class students who decide they may not attend every class. That might be something you want to consider. So those are appointments. I have official office hours from 9 before this class. I'll be in my office, but generally I'm here. I'm teaching here Monday, Wednesday, Friday. No, I mean every day. I have Monday, Wednesday, Friday class too. Those classes on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I'm teaching again from like 10 until 1, and this class is 10 till noon. So middle of the day, I'm pretty busy with classes, but other than that, I'm pretty free. I usually get here around 8, usually leave here around, 4-ish. So other than that, I'm just sitting in an office bored. So just feel free to stop up, ask me a question, or just text me and ask me something. So questions on contacting me? Again, I think most of you know this routine. So, okay. What do we do? How are we gonna grade this class? What's assessment like? So kind of typical stuff. We'll do an in-class learning activity, and I will record those for online students, and that's where we basically walk through an activity and do the whole thing. And it's graded largely on participation. You come to class or you do it online and you do as much as you can in the time and you submit it and you'll get credit. So it just get you going through the learning activity for this. So we'll do one of those generally every week. We'll do an assignment generally every week. And again, assignments are more set up for working on your own. So sometimes it'll be a follow-on to the learning activity. So in the learning activity, I'll get you so far and then I'll say, okay, now for the assignment, do this next part of this work or this activity here. Generally on the assignments, we want you kind of working on your own and submitting your own work for that. We'll be running, there'll be discussions. I don't have the discussions listed here. There are also discussions required every week. Okay. So there'll be weekly discussions that you have to do, and we're gonna use though. We're gonna try to use this more like a Stack Overflow class because we're doing a lot of programming and stuff like that. So there won't be set discussion topics every week that you have to like post an article about this. Instead, as you're working through your assignment, if you get stuck on anything or if you find something interesting about that program, post that there. If you're working on a learning activity, you get stuck on something, or you want to just post your version of the solution there, post that there. So we'll provide more kind of details as we go on, but there'll be weekly interactions that you have to do related to the discussions. And a lot of it is kind of be like Stack Overflow, which is this website online where a lot of developers post questions and then people reply to those questions. So that's what we're going to try to do, is kind of our version of that for this. We'll have 2 exams, kind of like quizzes that will be, one will be in the middle and one will be in the end. They'll just, well, we'll talk about them here. They're only worth 50 points for this. And so we'll talk about those, and it'll just basically help you make sure you understand the terms and the concepts. They won't necessarily be programming kind of exams where you have to write programs. There'll be more describe concepts and stuff. One reason I'm kind of using those is that now with AI, I think it's important for you to understand the terminologies and these concepts, so that when you're asking, working with an AI partner, you can talk to the AI and use the right terms in the more advanced software development, so you'll get better responses back. So that's kind of the idea there. So we will have guest speakers, and you have to do 5 guest speaker reflections throughout the semester, and we'll talk about the guest speakers in a little bit there. But here's our general schedule and links to policies out there. So let's talk a little bit about guest speakers. So now some of you are going out there and doing internships, and we're getting to more advanced work, and we have these textbooks, and you're going, questions start coming up. Is anyone actually doing the stuff that we cover in this class? And so some of you can talk and share what you did in your internships as part of this class, but I want to bring in guest speakers, alumni who have graduated, to come back and talk about how does software development really work out there? Because to tell you the truth, I'm not a software development, I'm just a teacher. I'm not developing software. I'm not doing all this stuff. I'm just trying to teach you about it. And so I think it's very useful to have some experts talk to you about it here. So we'll be doing guest speakers here. So I've got the first 4 lined up, and I'm still working on getting some more lined up here. I don't think those dates look correct. Yeah, so Steve is September 10th. Oops, I have to edit this. Okay. So Steve is coming in here September 10th here, and then Matt is coming the 24th, and Chad is coming the 26th. Okay, so it's just Steve was a cut and paste here. And so we'll have these different people come and talk to us. What they'll do is in class, this is an hour and 40-minute class and you don't want to listen to me for an hour and 40 minutes, right? So, sometimes we'll do, like we often do, we'll talk a little bit and then you do an activity in class. But sometimes what we'll do is we'll talk for a while and then at 11 o'clock, from 11 to 11:30, we'll bring in a guest speaker via Zoom. So the last half hour of the class will be a Zoom with a guest speaker here. And we'll try to bring in a variety of guest speakers that do different things. You know, Jad just graduated. I mean, we know he was just here last year, you know, and she's at DigiKey, so, you know, very recent grad. But like Matt works at Target downtown or in Minneapolis, and he used to live out in California and work for Apple, so he has a good background experience in that. Julie and Trish live and work in Grand Rapids, our favorite town. I grew up in Grand Rapids, so that's my favorite town. So you can have your own favorite town. But and again, they were both online students. Sure. Sometimes in my mind, I forget who's online students and who wasn't, but I believe they were both online students here. And again, we'll fill this out. So we'll probably have a dozen. My goal is to do a dozen guest speakers throughout the class, about one a week here. We have a sign-up sheet here for them. Oh yeah, we've got Claire and Owen coming in. Owen's coming back. That's so exciting. And Clara's coming back too. Okay. Sorry. Yes. Yes, you should harass Veronica to do it. So
We got you.
yeah. Anyone who's, yeah, so we'll have them do that. So we'll be bringing guest speakers for that. And again, you've got to do 5 guest speaker things. So you can kind of figure about half of the guest speakers you will have to write a write-up on. And so they'll be here. I think I have, yeah, these reflections on the guest speakers. And my suggestion is when the guest speaker is here, you do the reflection, you reflect while the guest speaker is on Zoom there and talking and go. That forces you to be more active in the listening sometimes if you have to write a summary of this. So, okay. Let's go to the start here, Unit 0 stuff. So again, textbook is out there in different formats here. And then and I'll have links to the Microsoft one here too. I notice I don't think I have that here yet for this. And then the software, let's talk about software and get started on that. So we're going to download, well, you're in the lab, we're not going to download Visual Studio. Well, we're going to start, but if you have your own computer, you want to download Visual Studio 2022 and run with that there. You can probably get by with like 2019 if you have that, but our official version, the version in the lab, and the version is going to be 2022. And I really think for compatibility issues, it would be nice if everyone was using that version of it. Okay, because again, if you're in the lab working and then you save a project and then you try to open up on your own computer with 19, you might run into some issues. So I suggest you try to. So let's just show, so you download it and often you have to do the installer. So if I go to the lab, or you might have to do a login. So why don't you see on this machines here, if I do Visual Studio 2022, what comes up for this. Now, you may have to log in to get it there. We want to get to this spot where you are running it and then you can open up a new project. We will often be cloning projects from GitHub or create a new project here. And there should be a number of different project types that we can choose from for this. But I think when you first run this, It may ask you to use a login, and you can use your login, or there should be a button that says continue without logging in for that. So why don't you try to get this set up and share some stuff, because I have a Microsoft login, so I don't know how I think you can just use your CSS logins on this for this. So how'd it go? If you run this, what do you see? When you try to run Visual Studio. Okay.
You just gotta win an app, don't.
Yeah, we're going to go. Now, the other thing I want to talk about is adding features here. So if I say new project, I'm going to see something like I can create a console app. I can create a ASP.NET Core app here, or a Razor app for it. There's different ASP.NET web app stuff like that. You might not see all of these on your stuff. So I'm going to show you one more thing, and that's the Visual Studio installer. So if I search for Visual Studio on your machine, there should be the Visual Studio installer here. So this kind of coordinates this. And like in my machine upstairs, I still have Visual Studio 2019 installed and 2022. So I have both of them installed. And so it lists both of them, and I can modify them here. And we want to be able to modify this here. So again, I run Visual Studio installer. It says I'm running Visual Studio. Now, we're in the class running what's called the Enterprise, the paid version of it, because of some Microsoft license, we get access to that. But on your home computer, you run the community, the free community edition of that. You probably won't notice too much difference, at least I haven't yet. So again, I have that here. I'm gonna modify it, and it will let me install different components in the Visual Studio here. And you can see these check marks next to the ones we do. So as you're going through class, you might want to check different things. So I think on yours, it may not have that much installed. So I'm interested to see when you do Visual Studio installer, you go to modify here, which of these libraries are installed here. So we do need a couple basic ones. We do need the ASP.NET and web development installed, and the Azure development stuff here. This Node.js is Java. I mean, is web. We are not going to use that in this class. Python, we're not going to use that in this class. But I use it outside of this class. And this .NET framework, this gives us like the console applications, which will do some of those also. So you want to have that here. We don't need it for Unity game development because we're not doing that right now, or C++ game development or some of this other stuff. So basically it is these two top ones and this desktop development here. So you would just select those, and then you'd say install or download or something like that. I'm not making any changes because those are set up correctly for me already. So when you go to those as students, are these all selected? Okay, that's good to know. Now, at home, if you do it on your own computer, or if you have your own laptop here, you may have to download those here. So, okay, I usually, for this class, we want the ASP.NET, Azure, and the .NET desktop environments here. I also add the Python and the Node.js just because for personal or stuff outside the class. Okay. And you can update this if you want. I don't even know if you can run the updates here if you have the rights to do that. Probably not. So don't worry about that. Okay, so that's Visual Studio that we'll be running. And again, you probably want to get that set up on a machine of your choice. Now, online people, or you know, the best world is if you have a Windows machine, run it in Windows, because some of this .NET stuff is Windows specific here. If you have a Mac, I was thinking about Clara. Clara's had a Mac and she did this class. We have to do some tweaks on some of this stuff. So if you're working on a Mac, let me know, and we might have tweaked some of the assignments. Last time we went to this class, I think I tweaked most of the time the assignments now so they'll work on a Mac, but I'm not 100% sure. So we'll have to see. So, right, yeah. So let me know for that. You know, if you have a Chromebook or something like that, it's not going to work. We do have access to virtual machines. So if you've got a Mac or a Chromebook, whatever, and you want to be able to work remotely, talk to me and we can connect you up to a virtual machine that we run and have you use that instead. Okay. Okay, that's source code. The source code's on GitHub for this book. For the main book, we'll be downloading a bunch of examples from the Microsoft book also. But the source code here, you do not actually need to download the source codes, because for the assignments and stuff, I will give you often a modified version of this source code to work with. But again, some of you just like to, if you want to grab it all, you can just go to here. Probably the easiest way is just to go and do, go to GitHub link and then go to download zip and unzip it, and it'll show you the source. It'll have the source code for that. If you're trying to do it within GitHub or within like Visual Studio, it gets kind of confusing because usually we have each project in its own GitHub repository, but for textbooks, they take all those repositories and put it in one big GitHub repository, which kind of is confusing because then when you're trying to download one project we're working on chapter 4, for example, it's all tied into this big project. That's why when we do assignments, I'll have taken that out, cloned it, and updated it, whatever, and put it in its own little project. So that is just be that one example we need to work with. But all the code is here if you want to look at it here. We will be using GitHub a lot in this course as our source control. And I know some of you have used GitHub, some of you may not have used GitHub. So we'll be talking about how to use that. And our first couple assignments we'll talk about we'll try to ease you into using GitHub and that stuff. And certainly if you don't have a GitHub account, we'll show you links to set up a free GitHub account at some point there. But I would think a number of you already have GitHub accounts. But again, we'll walk you through that later on. Okay, and then you've done your student introductions here. So let's try to cover some of the material from this chapter. So generally I'll have a link into what readings you want to do. And again, we're going to be covering just this first chapter of this textbook for this. So let's see if I can bring that up here. So I, as an instructor, get free access to this through this Vital Source, which is one of the different options you have to purchase this textbook. So I'll be lecturing this. Rather than doing PowerPoints, I will tend to want to try to, I know you're not going to read the book that much, but I'm going to try to force you to read parts of the book here because I find it actually very useful here. So I will be lecturing right from the book and highlighting parts of the book, and hopefully that'll encourage you to open up the book and then read those sections of the books. And we'll tend to have assignments that'll have you go in and do something from one section of the book and stuff like that. So it is very useful to have this book available to you. So let's just talk about the layout of this book. The key part of this layout, if I look, zoom in. What I think is the key part of this book is part 3, which is called the solid code. There are 3 solid, solid is an acronym for these 5 design principles: single responsibility principle, open close principle, Liskov substitution principle, interface segregation, and dependency inversion there. So we will be looking at those in detail, and we will spend a fair amount of time on each one and working through code examples of the same ones. If you've had the game design class, these will be familiar because in the game design class, you have the option to look at these same design principles in that class for this here. So that's, and again, these are still key parts of this sort of stuff. So we'll be looking at that. Before that, we'll spend the first couple of weeks we'll spend talking about what Agile and Scrum is as far as the design process goes, and also getting you up to speed on C# and this whole Visual Studio design process stuff. So we'll spend a couple weeks here. We'll do chapter 1. We won't do chapter 2 here just for time-wise. These are 2 similar but different Agile methodologies, and right now I see more people using Scrum, and also I see if you've used one Agile methodology, it's not that hard to switch to another. So we're just going to use Scrum and talk about Scrum here. I'm interested as we talk to guest speakers which Agile methodology they're using for this. And then we'll spend, before we get to solid stuff, we'll spend some time on kind of advanced coding sort of stuff, particularly interfaces. So you've probably looked at interfaces like you probably spent a week on them in Java 2, which is not, and you probably didn't understand them at that point there. If you've had another design class, like maybe you've had our mobile apps class, we use some interfaces there and talk about some ways of setting things up. This class really looks a lot and delves down a lot into interfaces and how we use interfaces to design and test more complicated systems. So we'll be working a lot with interfaces, going to the basics of what is an interface again, and how we use it and where we use it. So we'll be looking a lot with interfaces here and how we use them to set. And that will allow us to do a lot more with testing and refactoring here. So these are kind of the key to this sort of advanced development sort of stuff for us. So we'll spend some time with that before we get into the solid principles here. We won't have much time to do much in part 4. We will talk a little bit about these, but we won't have that much time. Instead, I'll be pushing us more into this microservice architecture, which is kind of the common way to develop large software systems today for this. So let's jump and talk about Scrum. So Scrum is an agile development methodology here. Rotate a little bit more because you can't see people very well. Okay. So have you heard of Scrum? Well, let's see where you're at. So have you taken system analysis and design yet or not? No? Yes. So some of you have taken it, some of you haven't, takes system analysis and design. So that's a course where we go over more traditional ways of developing software systems, not necessarily building them, but often installing and purchasing and modifying software systems. And one of the things that talks about is this waterfall or more traditional method we'll talk about there. Scrum is much more of an agile software development, so how you program or develop software sort of process. Did anyone, and so Scrum, you use sprints, you have daily stand-ups often, and you have sprints that maybe go 2 weeks, and every 2 weeks you're installing software and that stuff. Did anyone do Scrum? Has anyone done Scrum in their business, like as an internship and stuff? So what did you do? Where were you at?
The company was called Lulu.
Okay,
It was in St. Paul.
St. Paul? Yep, and did you do daily stand-ups?
Yep, stand-ups, 2-week sprints,
2-week sprints?
Kanban.
Okay, right. So again, Kanban is a little different than Scrum, but again, a lot of this is very similar to it. Anyone else? Miles? Okay. So now you were working remote. Do you do daily stand-ups remotely? Okay, and 2-week sprints? Okay. So anyone else?
We kind of did it in preparing with students for AI, in the group project. We had stand-up meetings every day, but because the training course part of the program itself was only 5 weeks, we didn't exactly have enough time to structure 2-week sprints,
Right,
but we got the stand-up meeting.
okay. Now, is anyone in the the capstone class right now? Brandon's capstone class. So Brandon runs the capstone class largely using Scrum. So again, you'll have sprints and that sort of stuff. We always have to modify it because we can't have daily stand-ups and stuff like that here. So we always have to do kind of a modified Scrum, which is a little bit challenging, but we try to kind of at least introduce you to that. So whenever you take the capstones class, you'll see a little bit more about it then. So let's just talk about it. So again, one thing I like about this version of the textbook is I can highlight different sections of it and so I can just highlight this, and my version will be highlighted a little bit. Let me see if I can increase this a little bit more. There. So again, this is an iterative design process with sprints here. So the idea is that you'll select different different updates you want to do to your software. You say, okay, this week or the sprint, we're going to do these things for this. We're going to do this stuff. And then you'll spend a week, or 2 weeks, a sprint doing those. So you'll go through and you'll work on doing these updates to the software package. And then after a 2-week period, you'll do a release, an update. And then you'll go and for the next 2 weeks, you'll pick out more features you want to add to your product. You'll do a 2-week sprint. Now, some people do 1-week sprints, some people do 4-week sprints. So there's some varies, but 2 weeks is pretty common there. So that's what I'm just going to say. You spend 2 weeks doing a new sprint, updating trying to install or set up these features, and then you do a new release there. A lot of software companies will do this. That's why, like every 2 weeks when you run Chrome, it says update to Chrome. So you can see the Chrome cadence of how quickly they update by how often you have to relaunch Chrome because of the updates for that stuff. There's a whole list of features that we want to add to our product here. And so for our sprint, we decide which ones we're going to add to work on for that sprint. For this. That's kind of the idea of this stuff. Now some of this stuff, like this whole section here, I have it highlighted in blue, meaning that I don't think it's important. We're skipping over that. So just so you know. Now this is a little different than the traditional approach. Oops. Yeah. That's too big. Let me see. I have to kick my text down, I guess. The traditional approach is called a waterfall methodology. And there are still companies that use this traditional approach as a proven method for developing software for this. It's been around since when I was a developer. So when I was a developer out of college, this is what I learned to do. So this meant that we released a new version of our software about every 18 months, so a year and a half. So when I joined the company, we were working on requirements. So we write requirements. So we were doing some updates, and I had some software that I was in charge of, and I had to say some code. I had to say what were the requirements for that. And I was actually, when I joined, I was given requirements at that point as a junior developer, and I was more involved in design. So given these requirement statements, I had to go through my code and try and do a design. I had to write a whole design document of every part of my code that would have to be changed to do these requirements. So it was like a 50-page document just describing every code change I was going to make to it. We had to have those reviewed and approved. So we had these meetings where you just review everyone else's designs and make comments and suggestions on how, if they missed something or whatever. And this is all before you even ever touched a piece of code. Then you'd implement, you'd actually make the changes here, and then it would go into test. You do testing, and there were different layers of testing, but it would often spend a couple months on testing it there, and then you deploy it, we'd roll it out, and then we were on maintenance and then for this. But from starting requirements to deployment was about 18 months. Every 18 months you'd do that, which meant you were only coding for probably 2 weeks out of 18 months of stuff. The rest of the time you were writing and designing sort of stuff there. So this is a traditional methodology, and where we've now a lot of places are using this agile methodology in its place. So for this. So let's talk about roles here. So let's do, again, we'll talk about these often in system analysis and design also when you're in a product. So often we have a product owner. So this is someone generally higher up the company that is often has the budget for the project or is paying your, covering the cost of stuff. That's the key stakeholder, often stakeholder. Sometimes it can translate into holds the purse strings sort of stuff, controls the budget here. And often is the person whose area of the company your software is going to be impacting the most here. We'll have a Scrum Master who will be doing. So some of you have had project management or project management course. So again, maybe you've been on projects where you've had a project manager. So sometimes you have a project manager who is someone who just coordinates the schedules and runs the whole project here. In agile stuff, that project manager is often called a Scrum Master. Now, sometimes there's both a project manager and a Scrum Master here, but often the Scrum Master is the person who keeps the whole cycle and everything, the logistics of the planning and all the agile stuff going for this. So you have your development team that are often you as developers that's where your role is. You'd be on the development team. Scrums, Agile tends to have smaller teams for this. Those of you who did Scrum this last year, how many people were on your team? Was it 20 or was it 5? It was 5, yep. You had a couple teams? Okay, yes. So 20 is a big agile team. 5 is a small. I would say 5 to 10 is pretty common. So, the book talks, and you hear this sometimes about the pigs and chicken and just how much of a role do you play as a team member in this game for this. The whole analogy is like on a farm. So chickens, and you're creating a meal. We're gonna, our whole goal is to make maybe a breakfast meal here. And so chickens can contribute to the breakfast meal, but then they can go on and contribute to another breakfast meal or another meal. And then, so they're involved, they're important, but they're not giving everything to this meal for this. But the pigs, when they become part of the meal, they give, their life is dedicated to that one meal there. So sometimes you'll talk about people's role as how much they're committed to this role for this stuff. So the book has that, so I just thought I'd explain that. Okay, let's talk about artifacts here. So the main thing is this Scrum board that we work with. So this, back in the olden days, we had Post-its and whiteboards, and we did things with Post-its and whiteboards here. And I would imagine there's still companies that use Post-its and whiteboards for the Scrum boards, but I would think majority of people are doing this with a modern version of this. I mean, electronic version for this. But again, the idea is it often follows this sort of pattern here. So you'll have some features, which we'll learn are called user stories here, some features over here. These are kind of in our backlog, ready to do. We probably have those offline, and we might want to just bring in the ones we want to do for this sprint. So maybe these are all we're going to do for this sprint. And then we'll have them in development, work in progress, or done, and then going through testing, and then done here. There's different ways of setting this up. Let's talk assignments here. You're thinking, Tom's talking awful lot today, isn't he? For this. So, for your assignment this week, the assignment part, again, we're not getting into programming, and so we're going to cover a lot of terms and other stuff. So the assignment not going to be writing any code or anything like that, because again, we're still getting Visual Studio set up and stuff like that. But so there's a question about technical debt, which we'll get to in a sec. And then the Scrum board examples here, where I want you to find a similar picture, a picture of a Scrum board. It can be a real whiteboard or it can be an electronic one online for this, and submit it. So find a Scrum board out there, and then compare it to this one, which comes right from your textbook here. What's different? How are the labels different on the top? Is there any color coding, or can you see some things like here? You can see like the sticker that Cav is doing this one, it looks like, but not everything has a sticker here. So try to find a Scrum board example and do this. So you can just Google Scrum board. I really like it if you don't grab something off the first page of Google's results on Scrum board images, because I see those all the time. Okay, so if you can just hit page 2 and find something not on the first page of Google, it just makes my grading a lot less boring. So that's all I ask. You can use page 1 stuff and you'll still get full credit. You'll just have a bored professor there for this. Okay, so again, that's what you'll be working on here. Okay, back to this. Yeah, it looks like it's right from our textbook, you're saying. Okay, so on this Scrum board, we generally have these cards. They again represent different features we want to install in our project. And again, we'll talk about these stories, tasks, or defects in a little bit for these, but often these are related to what we call user stories. So we have a card for each story. So here's how we kind of break things down. So our main thing is a story, and we'll talk about user stories in a little bit. So that's some kind of feature we want to do. Sometimes a story is small, is a good size, so we can put it right as a card there. Sometimes we'll have to take the story and break it up into tasks and then put the tasks up on the Scrum board. And again, different companies treat this a little differently in what they call a story and what if they have tasks or not here for this. Sometimes a story will point out a defect in our software. We want to be able to, users want to be able to have spaces in their username, whatever, and but when we coded it, we didn't allow that. And so whether or not that's a defect or a feature, so sometimes implementing a user story might point to some defect that we need to fix in our stuff. And we'll also talk about technical debt. So sometimes, but previously, we've implement stuff in a way where it's not flexible enough, and now we want to add that flexibility, and maybe we hard coded in some values, and now we want the user to be able to change those, or we want the manager or someone else to be able to modify or read those in from someplace else. So that sort of idea where we knew we were doing something bad before, and now we want to fix it, we call that technical debt. Here. So often a story might be broken into these, and these might be the actual cards that are showing up here for this. Generally, stories are been broken down into maybe larger features. We want to do this, and then, or at least stories are putting together into a release. So for a sprint, you'll say, we're going to try to cover these, do these stories in this sprint. So when I see release, I think sprint. We do every sprint we're doing a release for this stuff. So we're working on that. One thing that we start with when we're developing this is often a minimal viable product. So what we're going to do is incrementally build this. So initially we build a simple prototype that just does something basic, and then has the key features there. We start with that core, and then we do sprints to add features onto that. So the idea is that we have some minimal working version of this, and then every sprint we're adding to that minimal working or minimal viable product there. But that's often our starting point for this stuff. So let's talk user story. We have a template for a user story. It's always as a role, I want to, some action verb, and so that I can some value add for this stuff. So as a student, I want to be able to change my class registration so I can drop boring classes like Tom software class. So that would be the role of this stuff. So as what's your role? And again, these are kind of roles in the kind of software stuff. So it may be, we're not saying, as a programmer, I want to change the software. No, that's not the role. It's some role within this. So like as a user, or as a manager, or as an authorized user, or as a sales representative, or like that. So like if you look at our banner system, you have different roles than I do. I have a faculty role, you have a student role, or you might even like in Brightspace, of course, you might have a TA role or something like that. So what, in those roles, those are the kind of roles we're talking about. And then again, some action verb, but we're often looking at stuff we stuck features more like, oh, we want to add a backend database so that we can store this stuff later on. And that would be kind of a feature, but no, when we're talking about user stories, we want to look at it more from the user's point of view. So if we're adding a backend database, why are we adding the backend database? What does that mean to a student or a faculty or a user or a patient or whatever this is? How are they going to see this? So, as a user or as a patient, I want to see a history of my past visits to the hospital, something like that. Well, that implies a database storing my history of past things, but the user story is more from the use, that person's point of view, and almost often is tied to something that person can see on the user interface. So most user stories involve maybe tweaks to the user interface all the way back to tweaks to the backend database or something like that. Because of this, within if you're on an agile team, it's much more likely that you will be less specialized in your roles. You won't just be writing SQL on a database. You won't just be doing a GUI front end. You'll often be working throughout like if it's a web thing, more what we call full stack development. You'll be working on things throughout there. So there's an expectation that you're not so specialized. Again, like when I was first a developer, I specialized in some very unique, areas, and I knew that code very well. I had no idea what the database was. There was a database person, and if I needed something added to the database, I had to tell the database person to do that. I knew how I had 10 screens of user interface and that I worked with. I knew how those 10 screens worked. I had no idea what the other 50 screens did or what the software was about that, because and if anyone wanted to modify one of my 10 screens, they had to go through me. No one touched my screens there for this. And that's a different role than we have now there, where often if, again, an agile team, everyone is often touching every part of, or different parts of the software for this. Why don't we look and see a little bit more about Scrum stuff? So what I'd like you to do is find a job that talks about Scrum or Agile or stuff like that. So go to your favorite job posting site. I think I'm going to go to LinkedIn. Let's see if I'm signed into LinkedIn. And search whatever site you go to, search for some job that would require some knowledge of Scrum or Agile stuff. One thing you'll find, if you just search for Scrum, you'll get a lot of Scrum Master jobs, which is fine. You can do those. Let's look in. Let's look in Milwaukee. So, and again, why don't you pick some, I mean, you can look everywhere, but it's fun to pick some city somewhere where you might want to work or something like that. So if I search for Scrum, oh, see, now this time it's not showing me as many. Earlier when I was doing this, I was getting much more of these Scrum Master sort of roles. So that's fine. Sometimes you want, if you can find something like Agile, yeah. You can see it. So what we'd like to do is find some job that talks about Agile or Scrum or something like that for this. So see if you can find a stuff. So like this one talks about experience with SDL, Superior Software Development Life Cycle. So that's more of a traditional role for this stuff here. So see if you can find a job that talks about Scrum or Agile stuff. So. Okay, while you're looking, I'm going to continue talking. So these user roles are often broken into tasks for this. And let's talk a little bit about technical debt then. Have you heard the term technical debt before? Some of you may have, maybe not so much. So when we do software development, we often take shortcuts just to get this working there. When you're first developing software, you can't get it all often, so you just take shortcuts. And knowing that you will go back and fix those. When I write code, I put in a lot of to-do comments where I'd say / whatever, to do, come back and fix this, or come back and don't hard code this, or come back and do this. So in fact, a lot of software systems will automatically flag your to-do comments and make a list for you so you can easily find those. That's why we often use the TODO in our comments, because it's automatically flagged as something to come back later on to change there. So in my mind, technical debt relates to how many of these to-do comments I have here. How many things did I hard code, or did I, fix in place, or did I not do well that I know I need to come back later on and fix? Or I don't have to, but it would, part of me thinks, for future stuff, I should be coming back and doing this. That's what this technical debt is for this is that sort of stuff. Now, I'm going to go here. We're talking more about technical debt. And this is this trade-off they're talking about. You could implement a suboptimal solution now. And again, sometimes in order just to get the software out there, you can't have the perfect, you never, there's just so many things you get lost in, and you're never going to get this working if you're trying to get everything perfect at first. So your goal is to implement a suboptimal solution to meet the deadline. And then maybe later on, when you have more time, a little extra time, you can come back and fix that. Or when you're adding these features or, stuff, you will go back and as part of a future sprint or future feature, you'll be fixing or making a more optimal solution. So, and the textbook has these kind of 4 quadrants of debt here. One question is, do we do this deliberately or inadvertently? And are we doing it recklessly or prudently here? So, for example, new programmers, like I'm teaching Java 1, and Java 1 programmers will often do things inadvertently, recklessly, or poorly, because they just don't know. They don't know what an array is, so they'll just use 50 variables to keep track of these 50 things there. And they don't know there. So again, inadvertently, they don't know, and maybe recklessly, they just don't know what they're doing. Now, the other end is you're doing it deliberately, and I'm just going to hard code. I mean, I know I should be storing these things in an array, but I'm just going to use just to get the first prototype out, I'm just going to hard code a variable, just hold one of these, and then later I'll come back and I'll make this an array. So that's, you're prudently deciding that we only, I'm just going to hard code one of these in, or just use a single variable now for this. And now the question is when do you do this recklessly, or when do you do it prudently for this? So, do you make that decision, or do you just say, I just got to get this out and I don't care and just do it? So for this. So there's kind of this idea of how deliberate is something or how inadvertent it is, and then how reckless it is to do this. Will this really cause, the fact that the problem with some of this reckless decision is sometimes you make a decision to just do it the simple way. And a lot of stuff builds on that decision later on, so that later on, as you're building this complex system, and then at some point you have to go back and change that. And it not only involves changing that one thing, it talks about changing lots of other things that now are dependent on that one thing. And you go, oh, I should have just done it right the first time. So I mean, as developers, you always come to that point at some point where you say, oh, I should have just done this better the first time. This is 3 times longer now to do it this place there. But there's other times where you go, oh, now I'll just fix this, and it's not that hard. So it's hard to know. Okay, so I want you to look at this technical debt stuff and want it. So last time I taught this class was 2 years ago. And in your mind, you're thinking, that was pre-ChatGPT. So last time I taught this class was when ChatGPT was just coming out. So most of these assignments are not, haven't been updated for ChatGPT. So I'll be going through and updating this. I noticed I posted this assignment without updating it here. So, but I have updated it now. So I've tried to highlight in green some stuff I want. So I will try to use words like write when I want you to write something yourself where I think it's useful. Like here, I'm using generate to have AI generate something here. So what I want you to do is read this article and compare that to this textbook. So here's this idea of the textbook. Here's an article on technical debt that talks about how to, look at technical debt here. And I want you to compare the textbook's 4 quadrants to McConnell's 2 basic types of debt. So I think you can do that yourself. Waiting on that. But then I think you can also take and see if AI can do it also for this. So you can see how that works. Similarly, I want both of them talk about repaying debt and doing that sort of stuff. So again, you're free to use AI and other, with this to help you write these things. So if you want to have AI write, summarize this document or summarize parts of this and do this, figure out how this is. But I want you just to spend some time playing with these concepts, working with them, and trying to understand them. Not just AI do everything for you, okay? Similar down here for user stories, I want you to read I want you to give a short definition, and here you can choose. You can just read the section of the book. You can search, you Google, define what is a user story, or you can have AI generate a short thing of a user story. So any of those 3 is fine here for this. And then again, I want an example of a user story. And again, you can get one from the textbook, from the web, or from AI. So any of those 3 sources are fine for this. So you just have to do one of those. Okay. How'd it go for Scrum Agile software stuff? So did you find anyone want to share a job that might use Scrum or Agile stuff?
Java full stack developer.
Okay, Java full stack developer.
It just said knowing like topics surrounding the SDLC.
Okay, topics.
So, like I assume it's like probably a mix of both.
Yeah, right. Okay. What? Yeah. Same. Okay, anyone else? Yeah, Hunter?
Scrum master position for most of our buildings. That, not that you have like to qualify it, that's not background.
So yeah, often, there's some training for Scrum Master, but often the basic is you have to have, you work in a Scrum, in Agile projects for a while, and then you decide, I don't really want to do the development so much. I want to tell everyone how to do the development, sort of stuff. So you want to be more of a managerial or leadership role there, organizing role, and so you'll move into Scrum Master for that, so. Yep.
Upon the rotation of the manager, they like for the life cycle, so. Scrum.
Okay.
Yeah. For the life cycle. Like conception up until it's like.
Yeah, sometimes when they use that life cycle terminology, yeah, sometimes they mean that, sort of stuff. Sometimes, yeah, it's interesting. One more? Yes, Marilyn?
I found another Scrum Master position in St. Paul, Minnesota, for a company called Mindpal.
Okay. Yeah. Come on. Okay. All right. So I think we're gonna wrap up here, and then we're gonna come back on Thursday. We'll go through the rest of this. We'll start talking about how we measure things with these burn down charts and stuff like that, on Thursday. And we'll also go through the learning activity. We'll break into small groups and have you write some user stories and that sort of stuff. I have the convocation. Are you guys all going to the opening convocation today? The freshmen and I will be at opening convocation. So I have to go put my robes on and get all dressed up for convocation. So, okay. We'll see you on Thursday. You get to go to work. Yes.
Maybe I'll put that in top. Yeah.
Is that it?
Yep.
Yep.
We should meet with you to talk about that, independent study.
I have convocation today, but this afternoon, tomorrow, again, I usually am teaching from about 10 to 1, so before or after.
I could probably pop over after my class. gets started.
Okay, won't you try that? Sounds good.
Really random question.
Okay,
What's your favorite aquatic animal?
what's my favorite aquatic animal?
Specifically ocean life.
Ocean like?
I know what you're, I know you know.
We do a lot with I've done a lot of AI stuff with humpback whales, and I've seen a live humpback whale once, so
Okay.
I've only seen it once, but for me, humpback whales.
Cool. Awesome. You get no context, thank you.
Okay,
I missed out.
thanks.
Thank you for helping with the internships.
No problem.
I did that internship for US Steel.
Yes,
Is there
okay,
anything that I have to like get the credit for?
yeah. Yeah, so you did it, are you working from now or anything?
No.
So, okay. Let me look at your record and see what you need. Okay,
And then I was also interested in that that remote internship, that research position or whatever.
did you see an email on that?
Yeah,
That was a spam email.
okay.
So, yeah, there's lots of emails from me and everyone else asking for remote positions and stuff like that. None of them are real. Well, I will post it here in class if it's real.
Okay.
So, IT has not been doing very good at catching the spams.
My sister sent one to me, earlier this summer, and then I saw another one.
Yeah, right, yeah, so now, yeah, they're just, and we've had students lose money, they'll, or, you know, get, yeah, so don't impact. Yep.
I have a question. Would it be possible if I can use class because I'm still working for a lead
Right,
and they asked if I can do some hours on site
right,
and Tuesdays and Thursdays are actually the days I do this early in the morning.
yeah, yeah,
But I can like jump on the Zoom. Like,
yes, you can do that.
okay, because I would